December 18, 2009. Murphy's Roadhouse, Bakersfield. Steven Seagal had been nursing the same whiskey for 3 hours when 6 Hell's Angels walked through the door. Their leader, a mountain of leather and scars called Reaper Mackenzie, pointed directly at Steven's corner booth. "That's him," Reaper said. "Hollywood tough guy who thinks he knows our world." The bar went silent. Chairs scraped. Conversations died. Steven looked up from his glass, and for just a moment something flickered in his eyes that had nothing to do with movies. Something that remembered classified briefings and unmarked graves in foreign deserts. What happened in the next 4 minutes would be replayed on security cameras, analyzed by federal investigators, and whispered about in biker bars from coast to coast. The night Steven Seagal reminded everyone that some actors never stop playing their most dangerous role. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Steven's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his whiskey glass as the 6 bikers spread out in a practiced formation. The amber liquid barely rippled. Muscle memory from Langley training kicked in, steadying his hands even as his pulse quickened. 20 years of Hollywood couldn't erase the neural pathways carved by 3 tours through hell. Reaper Mackenzie stepped forward, his boots thundering against the scarred wooden floor. The man was a walking billboard of violence. Prison tattoos crawling up his neck, a scar bisecting his left eyebrow where someone had tried to split his skull with a tire iron. Failed, obviously. "You got something to say to us, movie star?" Reaper's voice carried the gravel of 1,000 cigarettes and God knew how many bar fights. "About how we run our business?" The other patrons had melted away like smoke, leaving only the bartender, a grizzled Vietnam vet named Murphy, who'd seen enough violence to recognize the real thing when it walked through his door. His hand hovered near the sawed-off shotgun mounted beneath the register. Steven took a slow sip of his whiskey, never breaking eye contact. "Don't know what you're talking about, friend." "Friend?" Reaper's laugh was like broken glass in a blender. "Nah, see, friends don't make movies that paint us as terrorists and arms dealers. Friends don't take Hollywood money to shit all over our brotherhood." The latest film, Outlaw Justice. Steven's character had gone undercover with a motorcycle gang running weapons through Mexico. Standard action fare, explosions, one-liners, and a body count that would make Rambo proud. He'd thought nothing of it, just another paycheck to keep the lights on in his Malibu house. But something in Reaper's eyes said this wasn't about wounded pride or artistic license. "It's just a movie," Steven said carefully, his voice carrying the practiced calm of a man who'd once talked his way out of a Beirut torture chamber. "Fiction. Fiction." Reaper rolled the word around his mouth like it tasted bad. "That's funny, 'cause some of them details felt real specific, like the part about shipping Stinger missiles through Kabul to fund both sides of a war. Real specific geography there, movie star." The whiskey glass stopped halfway to Steven's lips. Kabul. Operation Black Thunder. Only 3 people alive knew those details. Steven, his former handler Marcus Kane, and CIA Director Whitman, who'd buried the operation so deep it didn't officially exist. Kane was dead. Had been for 20 years. Steven had watched the safe house explode. Had seen the body bag loaded onto the extraction helicopter. "You went real quiet there, Hollywood." Reaper's grin revealed teeth like broken tombstones. "Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you just realized you've been talking out of school." Steven's mind raced. The operation had been need to know, compartmentalized. Even most of the CIA brass thought it was just another arms interdiction mission. They had no idea it was actually a double-blind play to fund anti-Soviet forces while simultaneously supplying their enemies, keeping the war going, keeping the region destabilized, keeping American defense contractors fat and happy. "See, thing is," Reaper continued, "we got mutual friends who don't appreciate having their business affairs turned into summer blockbusters, even thinly disguised ones." One of the other bikers, a rail-thin scarecrow with swastika tattoos covering his arms, shifted position near the back exit. Another moved toward the front door, professional, military precision disguised as biker swagger. These weren't ordinary Hell's Angels. Stephen's bourbon-dulled reflexes sharpened as adrenaline cut through the alcohol. His eyes cataloged weapons, switchblades, brass knuckles, at least 2 concealed firearms. But it was their positioning that worried him. Whoever had briefed them knew close-quarters combat tactics. "So here's what's gonna happen," Reaper said, leaning forward until Stephen could smell the motor oil and stale beer on his breath. "You're gonna make a public apology, say you got your facts wrong, disavow the film. And then you're gonna retire from making movies about things that ain't your business. And if I don't?" Reaper's smile widened. "Well, accidents happen, especially to aging action stars who can't tell the difference between reality and make-believe. Hell, your daughter, what's her name, Arissa? She's got that art gallery opening in Santa Monica next week. Lot of people gonna be there. Lot of potential for complications." Ice water flooded Stephen's veins. Not him. Never him. But his daughter? The glass cracked in his grip. "That's what I thought," Reaper said, straightening up. "You got 48 hours to make this right. Public statement, full apology, and a promise to stick to beating up ninjas instead of telling stories about—" Stephen moved. The whiskey glass exploded against Reaper's forehead in a shower of amber and crystal. Before the big man could react, Stephen's elbow drove into his solar plexus, folding him like a broken accordion. The table flipped, sending bottles crashing as Stephen rolled backward, muscle memory transforming a 58-year-old actor into the operative he'd buried 20 years ago. The night Steven Seagal stopped pretending had begun. Time dilated into fragments of violence and instinct. The scarecrow with the Nazi tattoos lunged from the back exit, switchblade glinting under the roadhouse's amber lights. Stephen's body moved without conscious thought, a sidestep that sent the blade whistling past his ribs, followed by a hammer fist that crushed the man's larynx. The biker crumpled, gurgling through his ruined throat. 2 down, 4 to go. A chair splintered against Stephen's shoulder, driving him to one knee. The impact would leave bruises for weeks, but Langley had taught him to embrace pain, to let it sharpen focus instead of cloud it. He rolled forward, sweeping the legs of a heavy-set biker whose coat bore the distinctive 1% patch. The man went down hard, skull cracking against the jukebox with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. Glass crunched under combat boots as the remaining 3 spread out, no longer bothering with the pretense of swagger. These weren't weekend warriors playing dress-up. The way they moved, fluid, coordinated, covering angles, screamed military training. Special forces, maybe, or worse. Reaper shook his head, blood streaming from the gash Stephen's glass had carved across his forehead. "Stubborn old fuck," he spat, pulling a K-bar knife from his boot. "Should have taken the easy way." Murphy's shotgun boomed from behind the bar, buckshot shredding the air where one of the bikers had been standing. The man dove behind an overturned table, cursing creatively. "This ain't your fight, old man," he yelled. "Like hell," Murphy growled, already reaching for another shell. "Nobody starts shit in my place without buying a ticket to the full show." Stephen used the distraction to close distance on Reaper, but the big man was faster than his bulk suggested. The K-bar sliced air inches from Stephen's throat, forcing him back into a defensive crouch. His knees protested. 58 was old for this kind of work, no matter how well preserved the machinery. 20 years is a long time to stay buried, Reaper said, circling like a predator. But some secret's got a way of clawing back to the surface. Your handler sends his regards, by the way. Stephen's blood turned to Arctic slush. "Kane's dead." "Is he?" Reaper's grin was all teeth and malice. Funny thing about explosions. Sometimes the wrong body ends up in the bag. Sometimes a man gets tired of being the CIA's errand boy and decides to go into business for himself. The knife came again, a professional thrust aimed at Stephen's kidney. He deflected with a forearm block that sent lightning up his elbow, then drove his knee into Reaper's thigh, targeting the femoral nerve cluster. The biker's leg buckled, but he grabbed Stephen's jacket and pulled him down into a clinch. They crashed through what remained of Stephen's table, rolling across broken glass and spilled bourbon. Reaper's knife hand pinned Stephen's wrist, the blade hovering 3 inches from his eye. The big man's weight advantage was telling. 220 of prison muscle versus Stephen's 180% of fading Hollywood muscle. "He knows about your daughter," Reaper whispered. breath hot against Stephen's ear. Knows where she lives, where she works, what coffee shop she hits every morning. Pretty little thing. Be a real shame if something happened to that face. Rage flooded Stephen's system like liquid fire. Not the cold professional anger they'd taught him at Langley. This was primal, paternal, the kind that made ordinary men lift cars off trapped children. His trapped hand found a shard of broken whiskey bottle. Without hesitation, he drove it into Reaper's neck, just below the ear. The biker's eyes widened in shock, blood spraying across Stephen's jacket. The knife clattered away as Reaper clutched his throat, arterial crimson pulsing between his fingers. Stephen rolled clear, chest heaving. Around him, Murphy's Roadhouse looked like a war zone. Broken furniture, scattered glass, 3 bodies that wouldn't be getting up again. The surviving bikers had vanished through the back exit during the final struggle, taking their wounded with them. Murphy emerged from behind the bar, shotgun still ready. Jesus Christ, Stephen, what the hell did you step in? Stephen looked down at Reaper's body, watching the light fade from those predator eyes. The man's coat had fallen open, revealing a tattoo on his chest, not the usual biker ink, but a small, precise rendering of a black thundercloud with a lightning bolt. Operation Black Thunder, Marcus Kane's personal symbol, the one he'd carved into his victims during interrogations in places that didn't appear on any map. Stephen's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. The art gallery opening is lovely this time of year. So many fragile things, so many ways they can break. You have 36 hours. MK. 20 years of carefully constructed lies crumbled around Stephen like Murphy's shattered bar. Kane was alive. Kane had found him. And worst of all, Kane had found Arissa. The war Stephen thought he'd left behind in a Kabul safe house had finally come home. Stephen stared at the phone screen until the words burned into his retinas. The device trembled in his blood-slicked hand, not from fear, but from the tectonic shift happening inside his chest. 20 years of Steven Seagal. The movie star evaporated like smoke, leaving only the operative he'd tried so hard to bury. "Stephen?" Murphy's voice seemed to come from underwater. "You need me to call this in?" "No." The word came out harder than concrete. Stephen pocketed the phone and stepped over Reaper's corpse, his mind already racing through protocols he'd sworn never to use again. Clean this up. Make it disappear. Murphy raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. In Bakersfield, a man learned not to ask too many questions when blood got spilled. "Gonna cost you." Stephen pulled out his wallet and dropped every bill onto the bar, maybe $3,000 in cash. Old habits died hard. He'd always carried operational money, even in civilian life. There's more where that came from. "I was never here." The old veteran nodded, already reaching for his mop. "Never seen you in my life." Stephen's boots crunched over glass as he headed for the exit, but froze when his phone rang. The screen showed an unknown international number, the kind that bounced through 7 countries and 3 satellites before reaching its destination. He answered without speaking. "Hello, Stephen." The voice was older, rougher around the edges, but unmistakably Marcus Kane 20 years collapsed into nothing. Stephen was back in that Kabul safe house, watching his handler count blood money while American soldiers died with weapons Kane had personally delivered to their killers. "I trust my associates conveyed my message?" "Your associates are dead." A chuckle like grinding metal. "Associates are replaceable. Daughters, on the other hand." Stephen's free hand clenched into a fist. "Touch her and I'll—" "What? Kill me? You already tried that once. Didn't take." Kane's voice carried the satisfaction of a man holding all the cards. "But I'm not unreasonable. I'm offering you the same deal I offered through Reaper. Public apology, disavow the film, disappear back into your Hollywood fantasy land. Simple. Why now? It's been 20 years. 'Cause your little movie is getting attention from the wrong people. Congressional oversight committees, ambitious journalists, former agency personnel with guilty consciences. The Black Thunder files were supposed to stay buried, Stephen. You've made that complicated." Stephen stepped into the December night, fog swirling around his legs like grasping fingers. His breath came out in white puffs as the adrenaline finally began to fade, leaving behind the familiar ache of violence and something much worse, the crushing weight of a past that refused to stay dead. The operation's been classified for 2 decades, Stephen said. There are no files to find. Aren't there? Kane's voice carried dark amusement. You always were naive. Did you really think Whitman destroyed everything? Politicians are pack rats, Stephen. They keep insurance policies, and sometimes those policies fall into the wrong hands. The pieces click together like a loaded magazine sliding home. Someone has the real files. They're using the movie as leverage, trying to expose what actually happened. Very good. Your operational instincts haven't completely atrophied. Kane paused, and Stephen could hear traffic in the background. Urban, heavy. Los Angeles, maybe, close enough to make good on his threats. Which brings us to our current situation. I've spent 20 years building a very profitable enterprise from the ashes of our old partnership. I won't let some Hollywood has-been destroy what I've built. Stephen reached his motorcycle, a black Harley Dyna that could eat highway miles like candy. What makes you think I won't expose everything myself? Tell the world what Operation Black Thunder really was? Because you're not that stupid. You expose me, you expose yourself. Your precious daughter learns that Daddy wasn't just a movie star. He was an accessory to war crimes. How do you think that plays at her next gallery opening? The knife twisted deeper. Arissa had built her entire identity around being Steven Seagal's daughter, the action star, the martial artist, the hero. If she learned the truth about Kabul, about the money they'd taken, about the weapons they'd moved... Besides, Kane continued, I've made some powerful friends over the years, the kind who can make problems disappear permanently. Your daughter's death would be ruled an accident, robbery gone wrong, random violence. You'd never prove otherwise. Stephen climbed onto the Harley, muscle memory guiding his hands while his mind processed the impossible mathematics of the situation. Kane held every advantage: time, resources, and most importantly, Arissa's location. Any move Stephen made would be anticipated, countered. But Marcus Kane had made one critical error. He'd reminded Steven Seagal exactly who he used to be. You have 36 hours, Kane said. Press conference, public apology, retirement from filmmaking. Or your daughter starts receiving pieces of her own body in unmarked packages. The line went dead. Stephen sat in the Roadhouse parking lot, engine rumbling beneath him like a caged predator. The fog pressed in from all sides, turning the world into a gray maze of half-seen shapes and hidden threats. His old life was gone. Had been the moment Kane's name appeared on that phone screen. Now there was only the hunt. Stephen twisted the throttle, and the Harley roared to life beneath him, drowning out the chaos screaming inside his skull. 36 hours. The number pulsed like a countdown timer, each second ticking away pieces of his daughter's life. He should call the FBI, the CIA. Hell, even the local sheriff would be better than sitting here in Murphy's parking lot, surrounded by fog and the ghosts of dead operatives. But Kane's words echoed in his mind. I've made some powerful friends over the years. How deep did this go? How many people and how many agencies owed Marcus Kane favors, or their lives? The bike's headlight carved a tunnel through the December mist as Stephen pulled onto Highway 58, muscle memory guiding him toward Los Angeles, while his mind raced through options that all led to the same dead end. Kane held every advantage. 20 years to build networks, accumulate resources, plant assets. Stephen had 3 decades of Aikido training and a bank account that wouldn't last 6 months if the movie offers dried up. His phone buzzed. Text message from Arissa. Dad, saw the pics from your location shoot. Looking very mysterious and dangerous. Can't wait for the premiere. Love you. The words hit him like a punch to the solar plexus. His baby girl, 28 years old but still signing her texts with heart emojis, had no idea her father's make-believe world had just collided with the real one. In her mind, Steven Seagal was exactly what the movie posters claimed. Hero, protector, the man who always saved the day in 90 minutes or less. Not the man who'd helped Marcus Kane move Stinger missiles through Kabul while American soldiers died in the Afghan mountains. Stephen's hands tightened on the handlebars. Maybe Kane was right. Maybe the smart play was to take the deal. Apologize, retire, disappear back into the Hollywood machine. Arissa would be safe, the truth would stay buried, and Stephen could spend whatever years he had left pretending to be the man his daughter thought he was. The exit ramp for Arissa's Malibu apartment complex appeared out of the fog like a mirage. Stephen found himself signaling, taking the turn before his conscious mind caught up. He needed to see her, needed to know she was safe, even if he couldn't tell her why. The security guard at the gate recognized him immediately. "Mr. Seagal, here to see Arissa?" She just got back from the gallery, working late again preparing for the opening. Stephen forced a smile that felt like broken glass. "Just checking in. Won't stay long." But as he approached Arissa's building, something cold and familiar whispered along his spine. The same instinct that had kept him alive in Beirut, in Kabul, in a dozen other places where death wore a friendly smile and spoke perfect English. Too many lights were on in apartments that should be dark. A maintenance van parked where no work was scheduled. Two men in expensive suits standing by the pool, their posture screaming federal agents or private security. Stephen killed the engine 2 blocks away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows between streetlights. His phone buzzed, another unknown number. He answered in silence. "Smart boy." Kane's voice was warm with approval. "You spotted them. My insurance policy, making sure you don't do anything heroic. Wave hello, Stephen. They can see you." A red laser dot appeared on the tree trunk beside Stephen's head. Sniper. Professional-grade equipment, probably. 308 with subsonic rounds to minimize noise in this upscale neighborhood. "The men by the pool are former Spetsnaz," Kane continued conversationally. "The maintenance van has enough C4 to level 3 city blocks. All it takes is one phone call, Stephen, one hint that you're not playing along, and your daughter's art opening becomes a memorial service." Stephen stepped back into deeper shadow, but the laser dot followed him like a malevolent red eye. His training screamed at him to move, to find cover, to neutralize the threat. But every tactical option ended with Arissa in a body bag. "What do you want me to do?" The words tasted like poison. "Nothing. That's the beautiful part. Go home, prepare your statement, and wait for my call. Don't contact anyone from the old days. Don't try to be clever. Just be the broken-down action star everyone thinks you are." Through Arissa's apartment window, Stephen could see his daughter moving around her kitchen, probably making the herbal tea she drank when working late. She looked so much like her mother, the same graceful movements, the same unconscious elegance. She had no idea that death was watching from the shadows, calculating angles and blast radii. 34 hours now, Kane said. "Time flies when you're having fun." The line went dead. The laser dot vanished. Stephen stood in the Malibu darkness, surrounded by Kane's watchers, and felt something inside him break. Not his resolve, that would come later. This was deeper, more fundamental. The last pretense that Steven Seagal, the movie star, could solve this had just died. Now only the operative remained.